it going, everybody? Thank you so much for attending. It means a lot to us. We're going to be doing these a little bit more frequently just to help buyers and sellers of MicroAcquire. But my name is Andrew Gazdecki, CEO and founder of MicroAcquire. And I'll pass it right back to you, Roger.
All right, on. Hey guys, I'm Roger. I'm head of marketing here at MicroAcquire, helping promote everything MicroAcquire, and yeah, loving it here every second of the day. And I am going to pass it over to Paul.
Hey there, thanks, Roger. Paul Kelley. I am the VP of M&A and work, almost exclusively in the marketplace, helping founders get to market and assisting in guidance. And with that, I'll pass the baton to Mr. Graves.
Thank you, Paul. My name is James Graves. I'm the general counsel here, and I head up the advisor directory and broker program. So yeah, let's get to it.
Thank you, General.
Right on. So actually, we're going to walk through real quickly. I'm going to walk through what it looks like to get a listing set up, and then kind of the initial goings of how you're going to get a buyer message and what it looks like overall, the experience when you first get started. And so let me start by sharing my screen. And so this will just be really quick, just to give you all a sense of MicroAcquire's platform. So if you're not familiar already. And so here, this is my listing that I created. You'll see that once it's completed, you'll have the listed tag here. And on the left-hand side is the public profile that people get to see, the anonymous version without kind of your deal name or your startup name. And then on the right-hand side are your details. So this is your startup name as well as the URL and then your profile here. And then so here, let me give you a sense of what it looks like from a buyer standpoint. So when a buyer logs in and finds your startup and your listing, they see everything on the left-hand side, as I mentioned, and they can read through it, and then they can request access. And so this will just be a message that the buyer would put together to give you a sense of why they're interested in your business, as well as their qualifications potentially. And so this is something that you will really want to keep a focus on to vet the buyers properly. And then so once they request access, you will get it in your inbox. And so here, so just go on your buyers and you'll see something like this. Make sure here that if you want to approve access, you want to toggle this off. So anybody who requests access, you get to approve it. If you have this toggled on, that means once they request access, they get instant access to your listing. So here, this guy has requested access, and you can take a look at his profile. Seems pretty cool. And then it'll take you to kind of the guided acquisition process. So this is kind of the process that kind of helps you manage with a lot of details and information on how to do certain things. And then so here, you go to requested. These requested access, you can either reject or approve. And basically, there's some details here in terms of what you should look for, right? How do you gauge interest, sharing details, set deadlines, and like how do you vet a potential buyer, stuff like that. And then so up to you to approve or reject access. Once you approve access, they will be able to see everything about your listing. So if you had a P&L uploaded or a pitch deck uploaded, they can see that. And if you have any other associated docs, they'll be able to have access to that too as well. And then so that would jumpstart your conversation into kind of negotiations and talking about what's the right deal structure. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward, and I think you guys will really enjoy the process, I think. So let me know if you have any questions or if anybody else has anything to add here.
Yeah, I will add just something that we've learned from talking to literally hundreds of founders that have been on platform is how to best interact with those buyer inquiries, right? So you're going to get a buyer message, they're interested. A few things there. One is you'll maybe come and open up MicroAcquire in the morning and you'll have 5 new messages from buyers, unique buyer inquiries. And the first message will say, hey, Roger, checked out your profile. Really seems like it aligns with what we're doing over here at this XYZ business. I'd love to set up a time to talk and learn more. Great message. The next message might say, interested. The next message might say, send info. And what we have seen is founders will cherry pick in a sense and only respond to perhaps that first message. And in fact, that's actually some active real buyers are opening up with that first kind of not so detailed message. So we've been advising to treat every one of those buyer inquiries as if that's the buyer of your business until they've disqualified themselves as being the buyer. And there's a little 3-step process that we've devised, and happy to share it via email to you guys. But it's basically, do you have experience in the space? If we got there, how would you fund this acquisition? And okay, great. I have an NDA. I have a deal book I'm happy to share, or a deck or what have you. Here's a confidentiality agreement. And those are 3 little hoops you're having that buyer jump through that, in my opinion, any real buyer actively looking to acquire a business shouldn't have a slightest issue with doing. That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a minimum competency like involved here. Even you don't have to be like the pro at this by any means, but even if you just use the sort of script that Paul just laid out, you're 80% of the way there. So highly recommended.
Awesome. Ruben says send it, and we will send it to you right after this. Thanks for being interested. Yeah, so we could jump into any questions y'all have about this process, about MicroAcquire, about listing, or specific to your startup in terms of what you want to do. So we have Francine. I know you put in a question here that you want to sell a startup in a long-term business. Do you have any more specifics on any kind of things you want to get more insight on? Feel free to type it in. All right, income requirements.
Is that relating to the listing or to the, I guess it is the listing qualification, is that right?
Yeah, to the listing qualification.
Andrew, you want to take that one?
Francine, are you asking just what are our qualifications to list on MicroAcquire in general, or I'm gonna assume that's the case with your question. So what we generally try to list and what most of our buyers are looking for on MicroAcquire is businesses that have proven product market fit and have some form of traction, paying customers. So we very rarely will list a business that's pre-revenue, just because there's not a big market for that. And if you're just able to even get just a handful of customers, your outcome is going to be so much more meaningful. So looking at your question again, how much do you have to make on the business? I'd say rule of thumb, we'll look to list. We don't have a hard number. We vet every listing manually, so we will review it. So we'll factor in the quality of the product, customer reviews, presence on social media, age of the business, and a number of other factors. But I'd say the minimum threshold is typically at least 500 in annual revenue. That's on the very low end, but just even a small amount, just if you have 2 happy paying customers, that can really show a buyer that there is potential in this business. And I always say, if you can get 1 customer, you can get 10, you can get 100, you can get 1,000. The stats that you're sharing, yep, that would definitely be a perfect fit on MicroAcquire.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. And then
And
Steven has a question.
Yeah, I'll grab
Well,
that one. Steven's
awesome.
asking, will the escrow payment be optimized / integrated with escrow? Escrow.com is not the most user-friendly, the 2 acquisitions. Yeah, we do realize that, escrow.com does have its limitations. So we're looking at other options that will be rolling out in the future, but not immediately. My best advice for you there would probably be to get an escrow agent. And we have attorneys that we would happily be able to introduce you to that can act as your escrow agent. That's usually the best recommendations for acquisitions when you start heading into the 6 and 7 figures. So if you need those introductions, feel free to email support@microacquire.com and we can
Yeah,
facilitate
and
those.
then if Steven, if you want to get into this more in detail, you can email me, and I'd be just really curious to hear what sort of limitations you're seeing on escrow.com to see how we can improve it. And I'm dropping my email into the chat right there. So feel free if you'd like to.
And then another question, do we help with the due diligence like a traditional broker, or do we have to do it manually? So we have two ways that we help startups sell on MicroAcquire. One is through our general marketplace. That's where we'll do live vetting and verification of just obvious things, but we won't, really dive into a P&L, recast it, put together, a full deal book. That's on the responsibility of the seller, and then also the responsibility of the buyer to do proper due diligence. We do have a ton of resources available. So if you go to resources.microacquire.com, just type in due diligence, and we have a ton of different articles from technical due diligence to just high level due diligence. We also have videos on YouTube. We also have a full course on how to, properly acquire a company on MicroAcquire. We also have previous webinars that you can check out as well as a buyer to really get an idea of, what to look for when buying a business. But if you ever do have questions, like you come across a business on MicroAcquire and maybe something looks fishy, you're not sure about something, please share that with us. And again, we're here to help, you succeed as an entrepreneur. So more than happy to help whenever you feel stuck, whether you're buying or selling.
And then just as a follow-up to that, when we send the recording to you guys after the webinar concludes, I'll include in that the email template that I sent. We've spent a lot of time educating founders just on process, not necessarily bringing them under advisement, but we'll kind of give them the roadmap. And part of that is, gosh, if this is meaningful to you, do the work to due diligence on yourself. And we have an outline of the typical questions one might expect. So set up a data room, due diligence on yourself as if you were the buyer of your own business. Create a memorandum or some sort of a deck explaining the business. And what that does is it forces you to think about the business in ways you haven't. It tightens up the business for presentation, and it gets your head in the game, really. So when you're asked those nuanced questions from a buyer on that first buyer seller call, what I found is that if you're not quick to answer some question that you should know the answer to, it gives an impression, right or wrong, of a lack of organization, and therefore devalues the business. And if you've just done all of that diligence on yourself and created a memorandum, all of that kind of stuff is going to be front of mind, and you're going to present well, as well as the business is going to present on paper, but you're going to present the business.
And then I'll take the next question from Molly. Glad you enjoyed the book. In terms of your question, when do you think a seller should start building a data room? And can it be a Google Drive folder, or do you think it's valuable to use a service like DocSend that tracks what specific documents buyers are looking at? So for number one, I think, you should put together a data room really at any point. It's a good exercise for you to review your business, have a central repository of all your information in terms of financials, also just documenting processes of marketing, operations, support, what have you, can just save you a ton of time, because you never know when a buyer might reach out to you. You may not be on MicroAcquire and a buyer reaches out to you. So just having that handy is something I always recommend, and it's something I personally did. And in terms of what you can use, Google Drive, I think it really comes down to the size of the deal. If this is, going to be a multi-million-dollar transaction, you probably want to use, a data room service. But we see people using Google Drive folders all the time. Just make sure that you don't have it on anyone can view, and you have the proper security measures in place where it's only being shared with the people that you want to be seeing that information.
Yeah, and like similar to what Paul just said earlier about building the sim out and like forcing yourself to answer those tough questions that can either give light in a positive or negative way to how your business is. having a data room ready will force yourself to be organized and be prepared and see any deficiencies or gaps you have in any sort of your documents. Like if you like issued stock or whatever like a year ago and you have no track of that, that's probably a big deal in due diligence, and you'll want to nail that down before any attorney is like digging through all your documents. So it kind of forces you to get ahead of the issue before it is a problem.
Yeah, and we're talking the same thing here. So when I was referring to doing diligence on yourself, creating setting up a data room, it is exactly that. It's really aligning all of those. We know what the stock question any buyers are going to ask, and I'll share that with you guys. So you can follow that list, do diligence on yourself, set up the data room, and then you'll be ready to go. Or maybe you'll realize that some stuff needs tightening, and you'll pump the brakes for a minute until that stuff is tightened up, and then go back to work.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna jump to. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
I was just gonna say, and just to kind of round out that question. So thanks for dropping that link to the Notion template for the data room. We also, if you're wondering what do you put in a data room, we have go to again resources.microacquire.com, and we have a few articles on what do you put in a data room, how do you set up a data room, so you can learn a lot in that area as well. But yeah, the number one thing that I always tell founders is, the best way to sell your business is to simply be prepared, because it shows a level of seriousness with buyers. And you got to understand that buyers are looking at a lot of businesses. And so the more that you can show that you are serious about selling, you are at least, knowledgeable about the acquisition process, the easier it's going to be for both parties. So again, it's never a bad time to set up a data room, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just dropped our example. When you go through the guided acquisition process, once you're in the kind of the workflow, we have a sample one through Google Drive that has all the docs. If you want to take a look, I just put it in the chat. You guys can take a look at the sample docs as well as what we've put in there for our samples, and make copies of those if you'd like.
Yeah, in the guided acquisition flow, the whole purpose of that is to guide you through everything you need to know and so we have example NDAs, we have example data rooms, we have articles on what to put in your data room. And then when you move into due diligence, we have articles on due diligence, what to expect, and all the way through to close. So, as you go through that, definitely check it out. Go step 1, step 2, step 3. Yeah, bring it up. And then if you notice on the right-hand side, we just have a ton of resources in terms of, an example P&L, example data room, which you can just make a copy of this. It's a very simple one. Example data room, and then also just articles that we've written. And Roger, do you want to click maybe escrow and transfer? Just see. And then on the right-hand side, we have how to close safely with escrow, how to create an asset transfer plan. So how do you actually transfer the assets of your SaaS company over to the buyer? So we have a ton of information already available for you. So definitely check that out. We could probably put it all together, we made videos as well. I forgot about those. We create a lot of content. So we could probably condense all this into a book if we needed to. But go on resources.microacquire.com and type in whatever due diligence, letter of intent, legal. We're constantly adding content as well. So let me check it out.
All right. So let's take a look at where we're at. So Ruben had a question. What advice would you give about reaching out to businesses you think would be a good fit for acquiring your business? Very broad, but yeah.
I'll take it if no one else wants to. I feel like I'm taking all the questions, but
no, you're behaving better than most of the time. Take this one though.
I'll take that as a compliment. I talk a lot for those who don't know me personally. What advice would you give about reaching out to businesses you think your business would be a good fit for. So this would be more of like a strategic acquisition, if I'm understanding the question correctly. And my advice there, and this is just from personal experience, you can treat those as, you want to build a relationship first. That's key. You want to almost like at a former company that I exited, what I would do is I would just update potential acquirers, almost like investors, just every quarter. I wouldn't send them anything sensitive, but just like, hey, we grew by 30% this quarter. This is where revenue is at. We're really excited about this product that we just released with the link. Hope you're doing really well. Thanks. And then I get a response back like, Andrew, so good to hear from you. And it just keeps that sort of your top of mind. And then when it comes time to actually sell your business, they already know who you are. They've, been watching your progress. And it's almost kind of like how you would, raise capital for your business as well, as just constantly keeping them updated for a period of time. And then when you're ready, you kind of make that ask like, hey, we're going to market to sell this business. Let me know if you're interested. So that's how I would play that. I hope that's helpful.
Awesome. So back to Stephen again. A question in chat: will MicroAcquire get automated report function based on my proposition requirements?
Can I take that one?
Yeah, I don't know if I quite understand that. But Andrew, go ahead and I can chime in if I kind of get a better handle on it.
Yeah, so we're working on having basically automated, data-driven alerts to you as a buyer. But in the meantime, I highly recommend downloading our Slack app. What you could do is you can configure what you're looking for by revenue, by profit, by category, by age, all the search criteria that we have in MicroAcquire. And then anytime a new deal is posted, it's instantly, you're instantly notified of that deal. So I highly recommend downloading that. Or you could join our Facebook group where we post deals instantly as well. But the Slack app will really help you, only receive deals that you're specifically interested in, and as soon as they go live on MicroAcquire.
Yeah, I'm just going to basically say the same thing that Andrew did. We're constantly working on updating and improving our matchmaking. In the interim, I think the Slack apps are just an awesome option, especially because it'll be right there in your desktop. You don't have to even be logged into the platform. So.
Awesome. We have one more from Francine. Do you have buyers that are looking for a business idea and training and proof of it working? Like, I would like to sell my business I have done for 21 years, but not the exact one. Does that make sense to help people become self-employed and work from home in part-time hours and full-time pay? Not sure.
I can take that. I think I get it. I think, Francine, if you actually made that a separate business, like you made it like a training program that you sold like videos or PDFs or whatever, or if you started some sort of like, I don't know, business mentorship agency that actually started turning a profit, I think that'd be a great idea. But I don't think anyone, most of the time, like Andrew mentioned, we don't list pre-revenue companies. So if it wasn't actually a company, I don't think we'd list it, and I don't think anyone would pay for the IP.
Yeah, and I'll take the second question. Is MicroAcquire similar to Flippa? Yes. The key differences between MicroAcquire and Flippa. Flippa is a great business in terms of domains, pre-revenue, websites, content sites. Our focus at MicroAcquire is really on profitable software companies. And then also the caliber of buyers. So we work with a lot of private equity groups, VC-backed companies, a lot of high net worth individuals. So more targeted, more focused, but definitely, you can find a lot of great assets on both marketplaces. So I definitely recommend checking both out.
All right. Does anybody have any more questions? Feel free to put it in the chat or put in the Q&A. Stephen has another one could you add a UI element to the list page so I can see if I already visited a listing or not?
We've had that. I'm sorry, I'm totally taking over this webinar. But we've been meaning to implement that for a while. One thing, Stephen, I'd recommend doing is maybe just archiving it. And then what you can do is you can there's a toggle within MicroAcquire where you can view all the listings that you've archived. So that could be a way for you to, really, I've seen the listing, archive it. I've seen the listing, archive it, just so you don't keep seeing it again in your feed. But in time, we might have like a check mark or something like that. And then Ruben, in terms of Google Analytics issues, send that over to support@microacquire.com, and our engineering team would be happy to look at that for you. Oh, and I should add, we have a big upgrade coming out probably by the time this recording comes out, in terms of connecting Google Analytics, financial metrics, and expenses to give you essentially like a P&L of your business if you don't have one.
And then Francine, I just saw your couple of comments. We do list e-commerce businesses as well, and they do great on the platform. So if you have one, feel free to submit.
And then Ruben, it looks like you did talk to support, and it is a known issue. I'll check in with them and see what the issue is, but my best guess is the upgrades coming to metrics might be kind of overlapping there, but I'll get you an update on that one personally.
We have another one from Molly. When in a process with a buyer, when is it typical to share their deal terms? Is it via email, a Zoom, in real life, etc.? Have a buyer that wanted to meet in person to hash out deal terms, and I was wondering how common that was to hash out in person via just sending the email, and when does it typically happen in the process?
So, I mean, it's there. It's really dependent on who that buyer is, where you're at in the process, what you've learned about that buyer. I would hope at that juncture you would have already got them under a confidentiality agreement, that you've gotten a background of them, you've checked out their LinkedIn page. You don't want to put yourself in in an awkward spot. But as far as meeting in person, I mean, I'm a big believer in the importance of goodwill in these deals. So what if it's meeting in a in a Zoom or Google Meets or that type of a platform, or if you're local and can meet in person, I think that's a great avenue. However, there's certain steps in advance of that I would want to make sure that are buttoned up. You have any other question answer there, James?
No, I think, I think all those things are important that Paul said. I think you should definitely, prioritize getting an NDA or a confidentiality agreement in place. I don't think in person is like that weird. If you're in the same location, I wouldn't fly anywhere to hash out details. If you're in different countries or different states, even, I think a Zoom is totally okay. And then, I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to start hashing out deal terms after, I don't know, they completed some due diligence, but not all in your company. And you're discussing an LOI. The deal terms would be packaged up into the LOI. And then with the understanding that they'll do quite a bit more diligence after that to sort of confirm their initial understanding.
One thing that I've been, some founders I speak to, and they seem proficient enough that they can handle the buyer inquiries on platform on their own, all the way up until where you're at right there with that type of a question. And that's when I recommend getting in contact with our attorney partners. James David Williams is actually here in the chat. It's Barlow Williams Law Firm. And, if you are at that juncture, it's a good time to have a conversation with them, and they could really take you to the finish line there. Also, another option is just to go to the directory, the advisor directory, and you can find somebody like Vlad or somebody that facilitates what your specific need is, and you can search to sync up with that appropriate person and start chatting through the platform. So hopefully that answers your question.
And then I'm gonna hop in here, guys. Ruben, I just shared our latest valuations report. We have a new one coming out this month, actually. So stay tuned for that. We also have a tool called MicroMRR that can give you kind of a ballpark range of what your business could be worth. Basically, how it works is you connect Stripe, and we take data from our marketplace to give you a range of what to potentially expect your business to sell for. And then I guess I'll chime in on Molly too, or anybody else want to take that one?
Yeah, we can just kind of co-team it there. That's basically the general timeline. You know, you're gonna want to put them under an NDA before you share anything sensitive at all, really, with them or non-public. They'll start doing their due diligence. They'll get to a point where they're comfortable entering into a non-binding LOI. At that point, you should confirm that they're going to be serious. You should confirm proof of funds. If it's like a fund, Paul always harps on this, make sure it's actually funded. Like it happens that unfunded funds will reach out and they'll just lock you up. Because at that point, they'll probably want you to commit to exclusivity for, I would say the standards is like 60 days. And if you get in tied up with an unfunded fund, that's 60 days of your life you'll never get back, and it's likely they'll never close. But yeah, after the LOI, you'll also be involved in due diligence, and you'll start hashing out your legal docs. Gonna plug the Barlow firm, like Paul mentioned. James David's in here right now. They'd be excellent if anyone in here, or Molly, if you ever need help with that.
Yeah, and Molly, I just dropped you my email if you have any specific questions. We're here to help, so don't be shy about reaching out. And then Ruben, I'm going to answer your question there. How necessary is an NDA? If it's, I really look at that piece as that, if you guys recall the cadence I said earlier about the, do you have experience in e-commerce? How would you fund this? And then that NDA is, in my opinion, at this point, more of a instrument of performance rather than really protection. And it's showing that they're performing through a transaction. And similar to like an unfunded fund, or you don't want to start going down a path with someone that's not going to perform, because I could tell you from very distinct experience that is the most painful, is when you start going down a path, you get locked up, you're exclusive, you can't talk to other buyers, and then the deal falls out. Work that falls on the ground is not my, it's my biggest pet peeve. So you want to try to increase your probability of close any way possible. And so that's really the tool for that, one of the tools.
All right. Well, Francine, you want to go live today? Please give us 24 to 48 hours, and we'll see what we can do. That's typically our timeline for getting new listings live.
Awesome. Any last questions, everybody? Thanks for asking all the great questions today. Super awesome. All right, so I think we are set. I think we'll cut it early today. And if you all have any more questions, just feel free to email us, right? support@microacquire.com. It routes to any of us here. And yeah, we have emails. James just put in his email address as well. But we're always happy to answer questions. We dedicate an hour pretty much every Friday going forward to help answer questions for y'all to get listed and go through the acquisition process. So don't be shy there. All right.
Yeah, and just to echo Roger, thanks so much to everyone for joining. And I can't iterate this enough, but we're here to help. We have a full support team, including everybody in this room, regardless of how big or small your question is, whether it's listing, valuations, due diligence, legal process, introduction to an advisor. We're here to help. So shoot an email to support@microacquire.com, and we can we'll happily help with any sort of request that you may have as either a buyer or a seller. And I hope you all have a great weekend.
Enjoy your lunch.
Also enjoy your lunch.
That's an inside joke. Yeah. Everybody enjoy your lunch.
All right,
Hey
everybody.
guys, best of luck.
Thank you guys.
See ya.
Have a good Friday. Bye.
Bye, everybody.